AI isn't coming for games someday. It's already in the build. The real question isn't if AI will change gaming, it's who benefits, who gets displaced, and more importantly, what kind of games we're going to end up playing in response to them utilizing AI in game development. Now, let's frame this and add some context and definition to the subject matter what we're talking about. When people say AI in gaming, what they're most oftenly referring to is games that they're referring to tools that can help with development. So things that can help with the art, the coding, the graphics, the animation, the writing, all these other factors and aspects of the game. And secondly, they can also be referring to AI in terms of gameplay, where they can create and alter systems, the players, the experiences, the NPC dialogue, the dynamic quests, and the subjectives and objectives that you need to accomplish in the game, the adaptive worlds, the voice acting, the moderation, all these other things. Today we're talking about both AI in development and AI in gameplay because they affect the industry in completely different ways. So developers are using AI, but a lot of them don't necessarily like what it's doing. All right, so pay no mind to this little submission form here on the side, but this is an article from GDC, State of the Games Industry in 2025. So let's look at these key highlights here. Economic pressure. 1 in 10 developers say they've been laid off in the past year. Indie resilience. Half of all developers are self-funding their games. Generative AI revolution. 1 in 3 developers are now using Gen AI to streamline game development. Game to screen. 1 in 3 AAA games are adapted for film or TV. PC game dominance. 80% of developers focused on creating games for the PC market. So translation, AI adoption within gaming is real, but so is the tension that's coming as a result of that. So I'm looking at this GDC report and I'm thinking, okay, people are getting laid off. People are also the same very people who've been laid off, they're leaving an industry, they're being forced out of an industry where the people who are remaining are people who are now prioritizing, or if they're not prioritizing, they're definitely implementing the use of artificial intelligence into the creation of games. This is done in an attempt to possibly streamline the process of game development, but that in and of itself is problematic because if you're using artificial intelligence to streamline the process of game creation, there's going to be a lot of intricacies, a lot of details, a lot of human touch factors that will be deprived from games, and the perception of that, the consumer base will be able to pick up on that, and they'll be able to tell, okay, this was not made in which a way that was human made, in which a way that will grant us our money's worth. This is something that is not genuine, is disingenuous, and people will continue to lose more and more of their jobs. And these corporations, especially these larger corporations, for example, let's look at Xbox. Their CEO just left. The new person who took over, she's someone who had a profound background in AI. So I would not be surprised if games releasing from them are now have more of a focus towards utilizing AI in the generation of their gameplay and their video games. We take all of these things into account, and video games will suffer a detriment as a whole because it's not being made predominantly and wholly by just people. It's being supplemented by the use and implementation of AI, and that in itself is inherently problematic. There's another key element of that GDC article that I want to touch base on, and that's the fact that 1 in 3 AAA games are adapted for TV. Like God of War got confirmed for a TV adaptation. I think it's going to be on Amazon. I don't know when that comes out. The Last of Us is already on TV. You're seeing this change, this alteration in focus, this change and alteration in focus from games towards other mediums. And while it's nice to prioritize creativity, that's something to champion. That's something that we all can be proud of innovation. But when you get away from the source material and you get away from the origin of that particular IP's effectiveness and potency, God of War, The Last of Us, the origin of that potency and effectiveness is a video game medium, not a television show or not a movie. But you're seeing a shift in focus towards these things, and I think that can have a sort of backfire, reverberating type of effect on the games industry because you're not focusing on game development. You're now focusing on acquiring actors. You're now focusing on budgets geared towards live films and live TV shows and now payroll for actors and actresses. You're not prioritizing actors and actresses for video games, but more so for other mediums. And I don't think that's going to be something that's going to be overall beneficial to the games industry. I can see how that can provide more of a consumer base. It can funnel more people into these IPs and into these brands, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to correlate with video game sales. That doesn't necessarily mean that these AI generated tools and that these adaptations of TV and film is going to lead to more video game sales, because you're bringing them in through a different medium and they'll probably prefer that medium as opposed to games. Not everybody is a gamer. The games industry is very niche, and especially since it's the main consumer base is mainly men, and we want to play games as guys. Movies are good, movies and shows are good, but people want new installments and new video games, not the rehashing and rehearsals of already popular IPs that we've already come to know. And by that logic, if you want to continue to remake these IPs and give them film and TV adaptations, why not remaster Bloodborne? Because people have been asking for that for the longest, but instead they rather push these other things that's taking away from the overall focus of video game development. To add insult to injury, stores and platforms are actively rewriting their rules around artificial intelligence. Epic Games boss Tim Sweeney recently said digital storefronts like Steam should stop using AI disclosure labels because, quote unquote, AI will be involved in nearly all future production anyway. Now, Valve/Steam has been adjusting how their AI disclosure works. They have now seemed to put more of an emphasis on AI-generated content consumed by players more than behind-the-scenes efficiency tools. As spotted by Game Discover Co.'s Simon Charles, Valve has made it clearer that AI-powered tools such as code helpers do not require a disclosure, and that efficiency gains through the use of AI-powered dev tools is not the focus of its efforts. The first of the two types of AI use that developers will have to disclose is AI to generate content for the game, whether that's within the game, on its store page, or in marketing materials. The second is AI-generated content during gameplay, which is the two things I alluded to earlier at the start of this video. And whether the game in question generates AI-created images, audio, text, and other content needs to be included. Since 2024, Valve has required developers to disclose on Steam whether generative AI was used in the creation of their games. This then appears on the game's store page in a section called AI-generated content disclosure. In July 2025, an analysis found that nearly 8,000 titles released on Steam in the first 6 months of 2025 had disclosed the use of generative AI, compared to around 1,000 during the entirety of 2024. However, although Steam requires games that use generative AI in their development to disclose the use, such disclosures are voluntary, so the actual number of games created using Gen AI is likely higher than the 8,000 figure. Now, is all of this alarming? Yes, it is, because they're using AI to do the work of our developers who are trained professionals and have certifications and actual skills. But I will point out the contrary, that there have been people who have said that and made the assertion that despite the onset of artificial intelligence, they're not going to be utilizing that or mandating it in the use of game development. For example, Xbox, even though they've had the recent CEO change, they have already come out and said, hey, we're not going to make AI mandatory in regards to the development of our games. I've been alluding to that the whole video, and I'm not going to go further in depth about it as of right now in terms of this article. But if you have more of an interest in it, just go and read this IGN article to read about the new Xbox mandates of them not going to be requiring AI in the use of their games. Now, in terms of the biggest ways that AI may change the industry or has already been changing the industry, production is going to get faster and expectations are going to get harsher because the onset of AI is here. So people know that they're going to supplement their workflow by using AI. And if small teams can produce prototypes faster, publishers may respond with things such as shortened timelines, fewer hires per projects. They'll have higher content expectations because you have AI to help you. So people's tastes and their expectations are going to increase. So yeah, this AI stuff is cool. The AI can reduce friction. It can reduce the adversity that you go through as a developer in order to create a video game and a new IP, but it also can raise the bar until you sort of price yourself out, so to speak, and you're just running to a standstill. Now, AI may also grant indie developers a power up, so to speak. They can create iterations faster, new versions of their games, new vertical slices, new prototypes in order to submit to get approved or to create throughout the development process. They can test ideas more optimally. They can do placeholder content, so to speak, while they craft the thing that they actually want to work on in the more human final pass that has the more human touches on it and less of an AI optimized version. So I think that could be something that could also benefit indie developers. But the catch is that the market is going to get flooded with the same kind of output. You know, if these indie developers are all using AI while having a lackluster engagement in terms of the human factor, well, a lot of these games might feel samey. I think this is why we start to experience phenomenons like Souls-like fatigue, even though myself, I don't experience that. I love Souls games, from software one specifically. But I think that's something that we could potentially see. And you know, when creation gets easier, taste becomes the rare currency. So we've streamlined the process of game creation, but now people's standards are going up. Another change we might see is content shifts. It'll go from more so of handcrafted games to more so something that is more personalized. You could see potential future games that generate quests that are tuned to your specific playstyle. You could see NPCs that remember your decisions, that remember your actions in the game. You could see dynamic dialogue that reacts to your history as you're playing. But you will see more moderation, you'll see more consistency, and lore coherence becomes more massive design problems, I think, as a result of all of this. A game can be infinite, but it can feel empty all at the same time. And this is reflective of titles like Sonic Frontiers. It's a big world, but is there really much to interact and engage with there in that game, in the Starfall Islands? I would argue it's not. So another change that we could see as a result of AI in games is that there'll be new kinds of roles, and there'll be this new onset of pressure on old ones. So you could see people who get hired as like AI pipeline designers, technical narrative tool workers, model QA, content safety, moderation specialists, creative directors of AI output and input, you know, prompting, curation, style control, that type of stuff. But likely pressure points that you'll see people apply is commodity concept art, because they're going to be generating that with AI as opposed to that being human developed. You will see copywriting and quest filler. You'll see basic asset variations. There isn't any uniqueness. There probably won't be any uniqueness to anything anymore, or not to the same extent. The industry doesn't just change jobs, it changes what counts as value. And AI, I don't think, can supplement and replace the human value. Now, where there's good, there's also bad too. And I think the risks associated with using AI stem from IP anxiety, so to speak. So you could see, I think a major driver of the backlash could come from unclear ownership, from plagiarism by proxy, and by the fear of theft because people are using AI and making these games. You could also see less extreme deficiencies, such as uniformity. If teams and studios are using the same AI models, you could see a lot of the same things, like similar face shapes, lighting choices, phrasing, quest structures. A lot of these things could be synonymous with one another if they're using similar types of AI models. AI can generate content. I'm not disputing that. It surely can expedite it as well. But just because it can create the content, that does not replace authorship. And I think that authorship is the preeminent prerequisite to originality. If you want to make something that is one of its kind, then it needs to be human made. I think another problem that can arise from AI is the control and trust, the quality of these two things. AI can hallucinate lore, it can dilute the findings that you encounter throughout the game, it can create contradictions or generate content that breaks rating rules. It's something that can be inconsistent, so that creates an inherent problem. And then probably one of the most apparent downsides of AI use that I've been talking about in this whole video is like the labor and the ethics side of it. Is it ethical to even use AI? Should we even be doing this? If you're expediting the process, you're removing the human touch. It creates this sort of tension, and it becomes an overall brand issue. And I think you'll see a lot of companies that may take a hit to their reputations. It may not be a significant one or something that's truly impactful, but it'll take a hit nonetheless, and that could in fact deter their profits, which might stimulate and facilitate a result that we would like, which is them to decrease the use of AI, because I don't think it's going anywhere. They're going to use it, but at least just use it to a minimum is what something we can hope for, at least. So as the player, the viewer who's watching the video, I guess you really need to ask yourself, do I want infinite content or meaningful content? You need to pay attention to whether AI is used to deepen immersion or just used to pad content and add fluff and not necessarily substance and depth. Now, when I make a video game, I'm going to use AI as a more so from a junior assistant type of role. It's not going to be a creative director role where it literally is doing everything from the designs, the animations, from the entirety of making that game. I would use it for things like prototyping, for iteration, like making a new version of a particular thing, for organization, to organize files, to organize busy work, for testing. I'm not going to be using it for animations or for my overall vision or the theme of the game, how the game is going to be made, the taste, the emotional truth, the capacity, the depth, the world building. I'm not going to use it for any of the tangible things. It'll be used for the meaningless remedial tasks, stuff like that, just to make things more streamlined. You know, AI is here to stay. It's not going anywhere. But my personal belief is that if you're building something that you really want to last and to exceed you after you are gone, a world, a story, a studio, a business, whatever, speed is useful, but meaning is the product. AI is going to touch almost every part of the game development industry. That part is basically settled. What isn't settled is what direction we're going to push it in ultimately. And that could be, do we use AI as a more personal, more alive, more expressive way to create games, or do we use it to mass produce content until games start feeling like vending machines, so to speak? Like how I said, it adds that fluff and you're lacking the depth. Because here's the truth, the future of gaming won't be decided by AI, but it definitely is going to be affected and impacted by it. It will be decided by people who choose how to use it. This is why I say that these corporations are incorporating all these things into their businesses. The people who make the games, that's going to decide the effectiveness and the prevalence of AI. If you want, drop a comment. What's one feature that you would like to see in a game that stems from AI, and which one feature that you would never like to see become normalized from AI within a game? And if you're building something creative right now, let's say you also have aspirations like me to be a game developer, or you just want to start a business, or you just want to do something else, just remember that tools change, the things that you utilize can alter, but taste is the real meta. I'm Harlem. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.